Yeah, thank you so much for everyone for joining. What we're going to be doing here today is we're having a training session on the Iowa caucuses. Most people know that we have caucuses in Iowa every 4 years for the presidential election, but not very many know that it's actually every 2 years in Iowa. And 2014 is an election year, so we will be having caucuses this year. The only difference from the presidential and the non-presidential years is we will not be voting for president, obviously. But every other caucus agenda that goes on will be continuing this year, and our goal today is to educate you on what all goes on in the Iowa caucuses besides voting for President of the United States. So that's our goal here today. The family leader is glad to be partnering with the Iowa Faith and Freedom Coalition on this initiative. Steve Shuffler is our president. He's been working on these efforts for quite a few years, so we'll be leaning a lot on Steve's knowledge today more than my own. So I'm just really glad to be partnering with Steve. And we just wanted to get some important dates out of the way for you all to write down and consider. There we go. January 21st is the date of the precinct caucuses. County conventions are going to be occurring on March 8th, district conventions on April 26th, primary election June 3rd, and state convention on June 14th. I do want you all to know the recording of this webinar will be sent out to all attendees. The Faith and Freedom Coalition, the family leader, will also be sending these out to our databases as well, and also making it available on our website. So there's a couple things that you don't quite remember after being on the call today. Don't worry, these resources will be made available for you, including this PowerPoint presentation. So feel free to take notes, but if you don't catch it, don't worry, we'll have it all provided for you. But we wanted to get these dates available for you right at the beginning. Is there anything you want to add so far, Steve?
I guess the only thing I would add, Greg, would be that the precinct caucus is on a Tuesday night, and the county and the district and the state convention, the three conventions,
Tuesday as well. Right. But we're going to jump right into the 2014 Iowa caucuses. So right now we're just going to be focusing on caucus night, which again is January 21st, 2014. And we are going to give everyone time for questions. We just ask you to bear with us through some of the presentation. We'll open up different question times throughout. And I know, Bill, you'll be helping us with that process, correct?
That's right, standing by.
Great. Thank you, Bill. But Steve, I'll go ahead and let you go through the win here.
Okay, thanks, Greg, and it's good to partner with you. The caucus is going to be on Tuesday night, January 21st. The start time uniformly across the state is going to be 7 p.m., and we would strongly encourage you to show up by 6:30 or 6:45 so that you can get acquainted with your neighbors, people that might be of like mind, and that you can kind of maybe even develop some strategy. Please understand that these are very informal. It's not necessarily a dress-up event. It would be like going to a town hall meeting and asking questions of your congressman or your senator. So it's very, very low-key. It's down to earth, so it's nothing formal. So we encourage you not to get uptight about it and just to kind of do what comes naturally. So it's going to be very informal. So, Greg, anything to add to that?
Nope, sounds good. And Bill, can you hear Steve all right?
We have one listener who's struggling a little bit. Said cannot hear Steve. That's Mark. I heard him fine, but maybe just have him sit a little closer to the speaker or something of that nature.
Sounds great. We'll do that. And the next thing we're going to be discussing is why do you need to attend the Iowa caucuses, which I think is a very important reason we have you all on the calls. We do know it's an investment of your time to take a Monday night, and especially a lot of people are wondering, well, if we're not voting for president, what's the purpose of us attending? Well, the caucuses is by far the most important time for us to defend the issues we all believe in. I know I'm a Republican because they believe in pro-family values, so I'll be attending the Republican caucus. Now, the family leader is not a partisan organization, nor is the Faith and Freedom Coalition. So that's where I will be planning to attend to defend these values, and we encourage both political parties to, of course, stand for the same thing. So the most important thing that night for us is we got to make sure that life, marriage, religious liberty, and many other pro-family values are defended and are stood for by both political parties. Right now, both parties have a huge movement to come out in favor of gay marriage. That includes here in Iowa. Some of you might remember a year ago, the state of Illinois Republican Party came out in favor of same-sex marriage, and the Democratic Party was already in favor of that. There's now a similar movement in Iowa. The Democratic Party in Iowa 2 years ago came out in favor. Now there's a movement to get the Republican Party in favor of gay marriage as well. And the big issue that we have is neither party supports our values and makes it extremely difficult to advance any of our issues at the state and federal level. And right now, if things continue as the plans are out there, there's actually extreme possibility that neither political party would stand to defend life or marriage or religious liberty and many of the other values we hold dear. So this is by far the most important thing and reason why you should attend the caucuses. And we'll educate you as this webinar goes on of how you can help promote these values at these caucuses. And one of the reasons, as we have on our next point, is becoming a delegate to elect leaders in the political parties that share our values. And as I said, as we go through the webinar, we're going to break down each and every single one of these points. Some other reasons also include, there's with primaries going on in the state, Iowa's got an open U.S. Senate race. We also have open races in the 1st Congressional District and the 3rd Congressional District, and a Republican primary going on in the 2nd Congressional District. And with that being going on right now, with multiple candidates getting into these different primaries, if neither candidate gets 35% on primary night, the nomination process moves on to the conventions, meaning district and state convention delegates will determine who the nominee is. And we'll go into that more during the presentation. But for those of you who are planning to vote in the primary process, it's quite possible you might have to vote again for your candidate in the convention process. And the last one, which I view as being the most important, is be a witness. We were commanded by Christ, one of his last commands, all authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and teach them to obey everything I've commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. And I've always said, I don't care if you're flipping burgers at McDonald's, working as a CEO, principal financial, or attending Republican caucus or Democratic caucus, there's always a wonderful opportunity to witness out there to many people in this world that don't know the Lord yet. And for those of us brothers and sisters out there, this is by far the most important thing that we can do. Anything you'd like to add on the why, Steve?
No, Greg, except I would totally agree with you on the last point there. Is sometimes in politics things become a little emotional with some people. So we would encourage you that whatever you do, even when you have strong opinions about issues, and you present them, to always use a Christ-like manner and rebut any kind of argument that the other side has with love, and let people see the love of Christ in your life, and that way you can win more converts than being very confrontational.
Great. And Steve, I'll go ahead and have you take over on the qualification slide.
The qualifications are pretty simple. You know, naturally you have to be a citizen of the United States of America. You have to be a resident of Iowa, and you also have to be a resident of that voting precinct. As an example, if you live in Precinct A, you can't go over to Precinct B and participate there. You have to participate in the precinct in which you live. You have to be 18 years of age, not by the time of the caucuses, but by the November 4th, 2014 general election. So even if you're 17 now and you're going to be 18 by November 4th, you can participate. And you also have to be registered with the political party for which you are caucusing. At each caucus, there will be provisions for voter registration forms. So if you're not on the, as an example, if you attend a Republican caucus and you have not registered as a Republican yet, or you happen to be a Democrat, there will be provisions that you can switch parties, but it is a requirement that if you want to participate in that Republican caucus, then you have to register as a Republican that night. Also, if you're a little bit unfamiliar with as to which precinct that you live in, I would encourage you to call your county GOP or Democrat county chairman or county party. And if you can't find that information, then I encourage you to call your local county auditor at the courthouse and tell them your address, and then they can tell you your precinct number or name, and then they will direct you as to the location where they're going to meet. Greg, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, that's great, Steve. I know quite a few, but I have quite a few questions right now. We're going to go through a few more slides to try to provide more clarity to all these points. And then we're going to open up for questions on just what you do on actual caucus night. But as Steve was saying, that all locations are determined by the local county political parties. So let's say you're from Jasper County Democrats and Jasper County Republicans will determine all of the locations for the caucuses. And they're usually at schools, convention centers, or churches, and a vast majority of them will be at public schools. And some counties will do their entire caucus in one location. I know Lynn County, which includes the city of Cedar Rapids, that whole county is going to be in one location at their convention center there in town. And by law, Steve was saying that all local newspapers are required to report the caucus locations. And both political parties, which you'll see on the screen, and again, we'll be emailing this out, they will be posting all locations on their websites. You can go to iowagop.org or iowademocrats.org, and both parties will be placing locations. And if you got any questions beyond that, you can call your local county auditor at your county courthouse. Anything you need to add there, Steve?
No, I think you've covered everything, Greg.
Steve, you want to go ahead and go through what they do when they arrive?
Okay. Again, this is a very informal setting, so don't look for a black tie event. I mean, it's very informal. So basically just show up, and again, as we said before, we would encourage you to show up a little bit early, like 6:30 or 6:45. There will be people to check you in. They'll have voter registration lists and to see if you're on the list. And again, especially if you're not completely convinced that you're on the list or if there's questions that you might be on the list, be sure that you bring some form of voter ID. Normally that's a driver's license, but it could be some other form of ID that shows your name and your address so that you can participate in the caucus. And again, if you're not registered to vote or don't think you're registered to vote, again, we would encourage you to come and then, of course, take a seat. But again, we would encourage you, to kind of get to know your neighbors, kind of make friendly conversation with them, and again, you should be able to detect if they're with you on some of these moral and family issues. Anything you want to add, Greg?
Nope, but just want to emphasize one more time, you do have to be registered with either the Democratic Party or the Republican Party to caucus. If you go to the Republican caucuses, you have to register as a Republican that day or vice versa, the Democratic Party. And as we said earlier, you can register at the caucus site. So just plan to get there early and you can take care of that. I do want to open it up for questions at this time, Bill, and we just want to make sure we make it specific to what you need to do when you get to the caucuses. We'll go through the caucus process after the questions in the presentation. So don't worry about the process yet. We just want to be having any questions on where do you go and what do you need to do when you get there.
And Greg, there are a couple of ways you can ask a question here. You can write it in. There is a window, a pane, a questions pane on your sidebar panel there that you can write in a question. I'll see it, and we'll make sure they get asked. If you'd like, you can raise your hand. There's a little hand symbol on your sidebar panel there. We'll try and go live to you and see how the connections are so that you could ask your question live. But if you'd like to write it in, we'll take care of that. And if you'd like to raise your hand, we'll try and go live to you. There aren't any questions at present, but we'll wait just a second or two. And Greg, it's about what happens there, right?
Yes, that's correct, yes.
Okay, so if there are any questions, you can go ahead and write them down. It might take a second or two. From Julie, the question is, do Democrats and Republicans meet at the same location?
Good question, Julie. They do not. They do meet at separate locations. Now, they might be at the same public school, just because small enough towns, they might only have one building to meet at, but they will be in different rooms. They are two completely different caucuses, and they actually have completely different business as well.
Again, you can write in your question. We'll be happy to field it. There are some who have joined on with us late. This webinar is being hosted by Focus on the Family in Colorado Springs. That's where I'm located, but happy to address your questions to the presenters there in Iowa. And you can write in your questions. We'll be monitoring those as we go throughout the webinar. If you can't think of one right now, but if you think of one after we restart the presentation, go ahead and write it down, and we'll make sure they get asked before the end of the webinar. If you'd like to raise your hand, we'll try and go live to you, but we do have a question now. Let's see. It's important to note that the Iowa caucuses are party-run. They are not run by the government of Iowa. That note from Claude.
Great. Thank you, Claude.
Anyone with a question? We'll proceed if not, or you can write it down and we'll attempt to get it in down the road. From Eric, this is, please let the webinar attendees know that activities for the Linn County Republican Party, that's L-I-N-N, the Linn County Republican Party, start at 6 p.m. Check-in is advised at 5:30 or earlier if possible at the Hilton Doubletree in downtown Cedar Rapids. That's from Eric. And then from Kristen, can my newly turned 18-year-old teenager register to vote for the first time there at the caucus? What do you think?
Kristen, that is correct. He can register for the first time there at the caucuses. Yep, the only rules, they have to be 18 by election day of 2014, which is on November 4th. As long as he's 18 by then, he can register to vote.
Excellent. Well, the questions panel is silent, no hands. Greg, if you'd like to go ahead and continue. Again, if y'all, here's another question just came in. How do we find out about the candidates who are running?
Well, right now, there will be no candidates that are voting. You won't be voting for any candidates in the Iowa caucuses. A lot of the primary elections, the candidate fields aren't complete yet. So at this time being, I would just watch your local newspapers, go on blogs, and also organizations like the Family Leader and Iowa Faith and Freedom Coalition will be keeping you filled on the different candidates that are standing on our values as the primary day gets closer. But you won't be voting on any candidates until primary day, which is on June 3rd.
And Greg, also, a lot of those candidates that are running, though, will undoubtedly have nomination papers that you can sign there that night. And that merely gives that ability of that candidate to get on the primary ballot. And by signing the nomination paper doesn't mean that you're necessarily supporting their candidacy, but it allows them to get on the ballot, and it will probably allow you to get to know some of those candidates because you'll undoubtedly have a lot of candidate representatives present that night. So it'll be kind of a first step. You'll get kind of some kind of introduction to some of the candidates there.
And most of the political candidates will actually have literature on caucus night as well. A lot of them mail it out to all 99 counties and make sure that's distributed. So that's actually going to be a great chance for you just to learn what kind of candidates are in the field. I know the U.S. Senate, I believe, is up to 5 candidates now since one bounced over to U.S. Congressional on the Republican side and 1 on the Democratic side. And with Tom Latham's seat just recently opening up, both political parties will be seeing quite a few candidates jumping into the coming weeks. So definitely just keep your eyes on the newspapers. But once again, you won't be deciding that until primary day, June 3rd. And the caucuses are again on Tuesday, January 21st.
And this note from Claude, he says, I have been to Iowa caucuses in off years, and it's a great time to have a lot of impact because typically very few people attend caucuses in non-presidential years.
That's correct. In fact, it would be very, very helpful if you kind of look your friends over and see who might live in the confines of your precinct and encourage them to come, because even bringing 3 or 4 people could have a dramatic impact on whether the pro-family agenda sets the agenda in that caucus. So that is a very true statement.
Well, Greg, back to you. And again, if y'all can think of questions to ask our presenters, feel free to write them in. We'll get them in, but Greg will go ahead and continue with the presentation. All is quiet right now.
Great. Thank you, Bill. And thank you so much for Focus on the Family for helping us out with this today.
No problem.
Yep. We're now going to go into what actually happens at the precinct caucus now, the actual process. And these are just 3 of the purposes. We're going to break everything down as we go through this for everyone has an understanding of what to expect that night. But the 3 main purposes are we're going to be electing individuals to serve on the county party central committees. And again, we'll go through what that means throughout the presentation. We're going to be electing delegates to serve at the county conventions. And we're also going to submit our values and issues planks and what we'd like to see on the party platform. And we'll be spending some detailed time on this as well. But basically, this is where we get to submit issues on life, issues on marriage, issues on religious liberty, anti-gambling. Those issues that we all hold dear, we can submit at this point to add it to the party platform. And we'll be going through all 3 of these through the presentation here. And then you want to add on the purposes, Steve?
I don't think so. It's pretty simple. You know what's going to happen there that night. So.
Great.
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, and Steve, I'm going to pass it over to you to address the Elect County Central Committee members.
Okay, the Central Committee members, one thing that's mandated by the party bylaws or constitution is that each precinct has to elect county central committee members. For lack of a better word, it's the governing board of the county party. And in most cases, you will elect 2 people to the county central committee, and there's no gender requirements. There are some select counties, and I can't tell you which ones those are, but there are some select counties, mostly larger populated counties, that might in some cases elect maybe 3 or 4, but normally it's 2 people. And this is totally different from being a delegate. So if you get elected to the central committee, that does not make you an automatic delegate to the county convention. These positions are filled through a nomination process of election, and again, because you probably won't have a big attendance that night, there's a good chance that if you want to go after one of these positions, there's a good chance that you might get elected. And your term will be for 2 years, and basically, again, you're the governing board of the party. The one thing I would encourage you and caution you is that if indeed you want to get elected, we would encourage you that when that county central committee does have meetings that you actually show up, or at least when you can. What happens sometimes is when people are new and they get elected and they maybe don't understand the duties, then they don't attend a meeting, and that doesn't give our movement credibility. Again, it's not complicated. Basically, some counties have meetings every month, some counties have meetings every quarter, some counties have meetings every other month, and if they don't specify that night, you probably should need to ask those questions. But again, it gives you a say in the Republican Party or Democrat Party in your respective county. So we would encourage you to seek out those positions and run for them and have somebody to nominate you, or if nobody nominates you, nominate yourself. But again, we would just encourage you to take that responsibility seriously if indeed you do decide to run for that. Greg, anything you want to add?
Nope, that's well, nope, that's great, Steve. I think you covered that very well. Someone just texted and reminded me that it'd be a good time to give you all the Faith and Freedom website and also the Family Leader website. We'll remind you this again as well. But the Family Leader's website is simply thefamilyleader.com. And Steve, what's your guys' website?
Let's see, www.
I think it's iowafsc.com.
Right.
Yeah, iowafsc.com.
I'm not the webmaster. I apologize for that.
Yeah,
So.
and we'll remind you that as well during the presentation. But we're going to go ahead and move on to now the electing the delegates to the county convention. And just remember that county convention delegates and county central committee members is 2 different positions. One doesn't make you automatically a member of the other. And to be a member of the county convention, you must be a member of the county convention to serve at the district and state conventions. And a lot of the early important decisions we're talking about when it comes to congressional primaries and Senate primaries will be occurring at the district and state conventions. So it's crucial that you remember that you're a delegate to the county convention to be able to get to that process. And the delegates are elected positions. The easiest way to win as a delegate would be bringing some friends that support you. As Steve mentioned earlier, we really encourage you to bring some like-minded friends. Claude did mention as well that the turnout during the caucuses in the off years are quite a bit lower, so bringing 4 or 5 friends can have a huge impact on caucus nights. And the delegates of the county convention will also be voting on the county platform, which is the first step in the process to determine what issues the state party will stand for. And it's our goal to make sure the party continues to stand for life, marriage, religious liberty, and other pro-family values. Anything you want to add on the county convention? I think I got as well, Steve. And I guess one more thing I forgot to mention there too, is you can bring your children to the county convention. They do have a junior delegates, and we'll be going through a little bit more what occurs at the county convention later on. But the important process, what's going to be going on in the caucuses, you're going to be elected as a delegate. Anything you want to add on that, Steve?
I think the only thing I would add, Greg, is in my view, even though every step of the process at a caucus is important, if I had to pick out one single important thing for you to do, is to get yourself elected as a delegate to the county convention, because whether it's issues in a county platform or a district or state platform, or whether it's a central committee, if you don't get elected as a delegate, our impact on our issues could be very limited. So If there's one thing I could stress, I would certainly encourage you to be elected as a delegate to the county convention, because that's a one-time deal, and you'll have a great influence if you can get yourself elected. And there will be a set number of delegates elected out of your precinct, and I don't want to complicate things, but it's based on the number of votes that the presidential nominee of your party got in the last election. So, you might have as many as 1 delegate, you might have as many as 5 or 10 or 15 or 20, but there'll be a set number of delegates, and it's based on a thing, but we would encourage you to get elected as a delegate because it's a very, very, very important position.
Excellent. We're going to go ahead and move on to platform planks. And Steve, go ahead and let you take it away on this.
Now, just so everybody understands, normally it's a given that platform planks, or the discussion of platform planks, is included in the agenda for the caucus, but by the same token, it's not mandated by the political parties that this has to be part of the program. So if for some reason the person that's chairing your caucus doesn't have it on the agenda, please feel free, and we would encourage you to say, I, for one, would like to discuss some potential planks to be forwarded on to the county platform committee. So please bring that up if for some reason the person chairing the caucus does not bring that up. But basically, this is the beginning of the process to build a county party platform, which basically is a statement of what political parties believe in. And I know some people who say that party platforms are useless and not worth anything, but I would disagree with that, because as an example, on the Republican side, if the Republican Party ever came to the point where they stripped the pro-life planks, the pro-marriage planks out of those platforms, I guarantee a lot of people like you and I would say, what reason is there for us to be involved? So it has a psychological impact that we, the party, believe in this, and we want and expect our elected officials to live up to these planks or this platform. So please do that. You don't have to actually have a formal form on which to write out a plank. In most cases, it's writing it on a piece of paper and then just reciting it at the caucus. Sometimes your leader of the caucus will have a form that you can fill out, but normally it's just writing on a slip of paper and probably handing it in and presenting it. It doesn't have to be flowery. Just speak from your heart why you want this particular plank passed. So it's a pretty simple process, pretty straightforward. The one thing I would mention, usually this discussion comes after your election of delegates and your election of precinct committee people. This usually comes last. Now, if for some reason it comes at the very first of the agenda, as opposed to the beginning, at the end of the agenda, I would be very conscious of maybe who's in the room. And so if it is a room filled with, for lack of a better word, kind of a moderate liberal wing of the party, you might be very, very careful or cautious in how you present that plank, so it can get a lot of widespread support. Greg?
Yeah. I do got a couple examples for everyone to look at for platform planks. Well, the Faith and Freedom Coalition and the Family Leader are both going to be doing is when we're done with both these webinars, we have one today, and of course that you're all on. We have another one tomorrow evening. So if you have anyone else that you think would be really benefit from attending this webinar, please forward the information on to them for tomorrow evening. But after tomorrow evening's webinar, we're going to be sending out an email and updating our website with the recording of this webinar as well as the slideshow presentation. And we're going to be putting a bunch of sample platform planks for Common Core, marriage, life, and many other different issues for you to print out and take to your county caucuses if you'd like. So once again, that information will be made available after, let's see, tomorrow is Thursday, so beginning on Friday, we'll be working to get that information available to you guys. There's a couple, I'm just going to read one of the examples for you. You guys are welcome to read through them on your own. The one that we have that we've been promoting here quite a bit is we support a personhood amendment to the U.S. Constitution that states personhood and life begins at conception, and that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, and property according to the 14th Amendment without due process of law, and shall hold officials accountable to enforce it. And that's just one many examples of the life issue. I know there's also a plank on the platform currently that prevents telemed abortions. The other example we have on here is against Planned Parenthood receiving state funding, marriage, defining marriage in the Constitution. There's many different issues we can go on, and once again, we will send those out to you as we prepare for the caucuses on Tuesday, January 21st. Anything like to add an example, Steve?
I think, Greg, you covered it pretty well. But again, there may be others that beyond what we're going to post on our websites that you feel very strongly about. And again, you don't have to be highly educated on that given issue, but maybe think out your thoughts before you make the presentation and go for it.
Great. And we have one more portion of the presentation to go through, but we're thinking it's going to be a good time to open up for questions. The next portion we'll be going through is the county, the district, and the state conventions. But this is it for the caucus night, what's going on that night. So we'd like to open up for questions for anyone that they might have on caucus night.
Greg, thanks. And we do have a couple of questions. Karen writes in, I think it was about 2 or 3 slides ago, talking about delegates. She asks, can she support a person wanting to be a delegate in another district?
You mean in terms of voting for them? Is that what you mean?
I'm not sure. The question reads, I don't suppose you can support a person wanting to be a delegate in another district.
Well, I think she's probably talking about different caucus locations. You'll be only voting in your caucus precincts. You would not be able to do so.
Right, just confined to that particular precinct. If you're voting for delegates, so you can't say, I want to vote for Joe Blow in another precinct. So it's just confined to your one particular precinct caucus.
Okay. And Judy asks, are we proposing a plank to support Israel?
That has been put in before. We'd actually encourage you to do that again as well. That is definitely something, Judy, that you can definitely introduce to your own caucus side. That'd be greatly appreciated. And that is currently in the Republican Party platform. And I actually believe that one might even be in the Democratic Party platform. Believe it or not, that one's actually quite a bipartisan issue.
And Claude asks, do you suggest proposing all of these planks, or would it be prudent to be more selective?
You know, the one thing I would encourage, I guess, is you want to be politically astute in this. I wouldn't basically take a big long laundry list and it looks like that somebody was prompted to recite a whole bunch off. It's not a bad thing to present all those if you feel strongly about them, but I wouldn't get up and say, oh, by the way, a certain organization or organizations encourage me to do this. It just needs to appear, and rightfully so, that this is coming from your heart and that you're proposing it and you want to push it forward. But you just have to use a little political astuteness and a little political savvy. And again, I'm not encouraging you to be deceptive. I'm just encouraging you to kind of use your political head and not get up there and say, well, Joe Blow or this organization said I should present these. So if you feel strongly, go for it.
And Claude, the examples I gave right here that's on the screen that you're looking at, these actually come from the party platform themselves. So these were a plank that made it onto the platform. And my recommendation for the plank process, put as many ideas as you want in. Not all of them will make it onto the platform, but let's get all of our ideas out there possible. And for those of us on the call that are very passionate on the platform, you can actually volunteer and work to get elected on the platform committee. And Steve, I'm going to let you give a little bit more information on this. I think you know a bit more than I do, but for those of you who are really interested, this is a big opportunity for you guys.
Yeah, the platform committee, I've actually served on a few platform committees over the years. It's a very, very good process, but you should be prepared to show up for maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 meetings. So prior to the March 8th county convention, there will be a series of 4 or 5 meetings. And many times, basically, they will divide the planks that come in from all the precincts around the county and divide it down maybe into a subcommittee where these 2 or 3 people will deal with moral issues and these 2 or 3 people will deal with fiscal issues. So they might actually divide them down, have them kind of meet and then come back to the full body and then present. So it's kind of a longer process. So be prepared to spend some time or maybe some Saturday afternoons, 2 or 3 or maybe even 4, prior to the county convention to do that. But we would encourage you to do that because even though those planks will be considered, that doesn't mean that things that weren't presented that night can't be presented before the full platform committee. So as an example, if you're on the county platform committee and your particular plank or your hot button issue didn't get on the radar, you certainly can bring it up. But we would encourage you because, again, you will have a lot of influence because in 9 out of 10 cases, that county platform, those planks will be adopted by the full county convention. Many of them will be up for debate, but in most cases, at 90 to 95% of the proposed county platform that you put together if you're on that committee will be adopted by the full county convention. Greg?
So is there any other questions, Bill?
No, they've gone empty, but if you have a question and you can begin writing it down, then we can get them addressed. One just came in. I thought these platform planks are for the Republican Party platform. If I got this right, why would I present a plank that is already part of the platform? From Daniel.
You would want to do that because the bottom line is, even though the old platform is a matter of public record, basically it's a new platform that becomes kind of the front and center for the county and the state parties and all that, and that's the platform, the most recent platform that they're going to post on their website, and that most people will have access to. So, and I guarantee you that if we don't reintroduce some of these planks that are important to our pro-family constituency, the moderate liberals within a political party are certainly going to put in their planks. And again, as I said before, just from a standpoint of perception and where our county party stands, it would behoove us to make sure that we get our planks in there to make sure that our current platform says we, the party, believe in A, B, C, D.
And Daniel, the platform starts from scratch each caucus cycle. So just because it's in the current platform does not mean that it's going to be in the next platform. And there is a movement out there to have both political parties and the platform say they are in favor of gay marriage. And that's one of many other issues they're looking at, and core curriculum is most certainly another one that comes up. So just because you see it in there now does not mean it's going to be in there in the future. So we have a new platform this cycle.
And acknowledge, Karen. Thank you. And the questions panel is empty, and you may proceed. We'll continue to take questions as you write them, but Greg, go ahead and proceed with the brief.
Great. Thank you, Bill. Now we're going to be going into the convention process. This is, of course, now, again, after the caucuses. And if you've been elected as a delegate, you'll be moving on to the county convention, which is on March 8th, 2014. The average cost is $20, particularly for the larger counties. But I was talking to Steve earlier. He said some of the smaller counties can get down to $10. He said even some of them are free, correct,
right,
Steve?
Right.
Yeah. And at the county convention, we'll be electing delegates to the district and state convention. And how this works, I just want to clarify this. If you get elected to the district convention, you're automatically a delegate to the state. So I just want to repeat that again. If you get elected to the district convention, you're automatically a delegate to the state convention. And we really desperately need pro-family Iowans to run for this position. This is going to be the most crucial in the process, that you get elected to a district and state convention. And we'll go through what goes on at both those conventions to show you why. But there's, we already mentioned the U.S. Senate and U.S. congressional races might end up getting determined at these conventions. And also the main governing body for both political parties is also determined at the district convention as well. So again, we really are going to emphasize on that. You're going to be voting in the county platform. And once again, we want to ensure that county platforms are pro-family. And like I said earlier, feel free to bring your kids. This will be a great time for them. It's an excellent civics lesson to get to work on their own platform, and they get to hear from different representatives and senators in the counties. So don't feel free like, oh, I got children at home, I can't come. Do feel free to bring them to be junior delegates. And then you'd like to add in the county convention, Steve?
Greg, the only thing I would add is you want to make sure that you perk up your ears and get the time and the location where your county convention is going to be held. It's not mandated by the state parties to mandate a particular time that the county convention starts. In many cases, they start in the morning. Some cases, they start in early afternoon. And in some select cases, not very many, you'll even have an evening county convention. So make sure you keep your ears tuned in as to what time the county convention starts and the exact location. I think that's all, Greg.
Excellent. Thank you, Steve. And we're going to move on to the district convention next. And Steve, I'm going to let you address the district convention.
The district convention is going to be on April 26, 2014. And I believe that, and by district convention we mean congressional district convention. So there'll actually be 4 of this. One in District 1, which is in Northeast Iowa, District 2, which is in Southeast Iowa, District 3, which is in Central and Southwest Iowa, and then District 4, which is in Northwest Iowa. And those conventions all will be held in the morning. The county or the district party leaders will determine the starting time of those conventions. I'm guessing that in most cases they will commence at either 9:30 or 10 a.m. and probably run till 3, 4 p.m. in the afternoon. And in most cases there will be a provision for you to buy like a sack lunch or whatever. There will be eating facilities on the premises. And this is going to be a very, very important convention because you are going to elect your state party leadership. And in case of the Republican side of the aisle, you'll be electing 4 members to the State Central Committee, and it'll be 4 people will be elected from each congressional district, and those 4 people times 4, that's 16 people, plus the National Committee man, the National Committee woman, those people will comprise the state party leadership. And we want to ensure that these people share our values on positions and that they will not wimp away from what's right. And the State Central Committee presently has a very, very important function to play. They will be electing a state party chairman and a state party co-chairman, and they will do that, and they do that every January after the last general election. So as an example, the next time that this will happen will be in January of 2015. And I think as Greg mentioned before, in the state of Illinois, they recently had a pro-gay marriage state chairman. And so it's absolutely essential that that committee is comprised of people that are with us on issues from A to Z, but also people that have the party's interest at heart in promoting the agenda at hand. And at the district convention, you'll also be adopting a district convention platform. And usually what happens at the district convention, that district convention will have a district convention platform committee. And usually what they do is they will bring or ask for all the county platforms that were put together in that congressional district and brought to the table for consideration for inclusion. And again, if you want to run for that district platform committee, we would encourage you to do that, but they will be voting for those. And again, bring your kids to be junior delegates, but I can't stress how important the district convention is because you will be electing leaders for your state party. Greg?
That's great, Steve. And I did want to clarify something from earlier when I said that the Israel plank was actually in the state party platform. That's actually no longer true. I actually just got information received to me that I'm going to say something a bit controversial. I'm not going to say it, but there's a Ron Paul faction at the last state party convention that actually were successful in removing Israel from the party platform. So once again, that is why it is important that we get pro-family people elected to these conventions. That's what ends up happening. But fortunately, I think we can get that restored. Most members of actually both political parties have been supportive of Israel, but that is starting to wane through the years now. And I also wanted to address the Illinois situation quite a bit. Some of you might have followed that pretty closely. Illinois originally had civil unions, and there was a movement to get gay marriage brought into the state. And there's quite a few members of the African American caucus that are Democrats that were not going to support gay marriage, and they were having a very difficult time passing gay marriage in the state of Illinois. So where did they look to get help? They contacted the Republican Party chairman to see if they could help get a couple Republican votes because they couldn't get enough Democratic votes in a very Democratic state of Illinois. And they were successful in getting a weak, moderate party chairman to come out in favor of gay marriage. And as a result, gay marriage stands in the state of Illinois, largely not because of only Democratic support, but a lot of Republican support, largely because of this chairman. There's a huge move by the National Organization for Marriage to get him removed, and he has since been removed, but largely because of two parties working together, gay marriage passed in the state of Illinois. And I can tell you there is a movement to do something very similar in Iowa, and that's the main reason, one of the many reasons why the Faith and Freedom Coalition, the Family Leader, have come together for this caucus to convention cycle. because we want to make sure the same pattern does not happen in our state.
Yeah, Greg, you're absolutely correct. In fact, there is an organization that's been put together that has specifically stated that their goal is on the Republican side of the aisle to recruit 40,000 Republicans to go to their caucuses in 2016 for the express purpose of stripping the platform of a pro-marriage plank. And in my view, that would be very devastating. So, like Greg said, it's just not a threat within the Democrat Party, but the Republican Party. There's a real move by certain individuals that want to yank the party clear to the left and stand for nothing. So we encourage you to go. Oh, and by the way, I think the one thing we didn't mention, but it's on your screen here, the cost is $40, but that covers the cost of both conventions. And basically, that's not a fundraiser for this party, but it's basically to cover the cost of renting the convention facility and all that goes with it, the credentials tags and all that. So basically, it's to cover the cost of both conventions. It's not a moneymaker.
Great, thanks, Steve. And the final thing we're going to be addressing here today is the state convention. And this is the end of the caucus to convention cycle. There is no national convention in off years, so we conclude at the state convention in this process. The state convention is on June 14, 2014. And am I correct, Steve, that's been decided to be in Des Moines this year? Yep, and I imagine both political parties will be in Des Moines.
I believe it, don't quote me on this, but I believe it's going to be at the Hy-Vee Center where it was 2 years ago, but it will be in Des Moines, Iowa. That's for sure.
And I believe that goes for both political parties will be in Des Moines, and we believe the Republican will be at the Hy-Vee Convention Center.
And I don't know if the time has been set yet, but probably it will be either 9:30 or 10 a.m. with credentialing. So if you're a delegate, you have to come and actually sign in before. So again, if the convention starts at 9:30, it'd be a good idea to show up at 9 o'clock or whatever, but you'll find out that time a little bit later on.
And at the state convention, the last point we have on there is that the party platform will be voted on and ratified. So this will be the final party platform for both the Democratic Party of Iowa and the Republican Party of Iowa and what the state parties are going to represent. We also discussed that there is a chance that the U.S. Senate candidate will be determined at the state convention if none of the candidates are able to reach 35% on primary night. And the other possibility is in the 3rd Congressional District and the 1st Congressional Districts end up going to a district convention. And that district convention can be called at the same time as a state convention, or it might be called at a later or possibly earlier date. But remember, if you're a state delegate, you're also a district delegate. You're a delegate to both. So if you're able to get to this level, there is a chance if you live in the 3rd and 1st District, you're going to have a say in both the congressional race and the U.S. Senate race who's going to be the nominee, which is also very, very crucial. A well-known Congressman, Steve King from Iowa, is actually determined to be the top nominee for the Republican Party at the 5th District Convention back in 2002. So, I mean, this does happen. And in Iowa, with so many candidates running, there is a strong possibility of this, especially in the 3rd Congressional District. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if we did see that happen. So we do want to express the importance of that. The Lieutenant Governor nominee, I know Kim Reynolds is looking to be running again for the Republican side, will also be determined at the state convention as well. Anything else to add on the state convention?
I think, Greg, you've covered it pretty well.
Great. And that concludes the presentation that we have, so we just want to open it up to any questions that anyone might have at this time.
Well, we are abutting up against our closing time at 1 p.m. Central. That said, if you have a question, you can write it in, and we'll make sure it gets asked. If you have a computer, if you have a microphone for talking with us, you can raise your hand. We'll try to go live. One thing is, as you write in your questions, should you not get them in on time, the software will record it, and we'll make sure it gets asked. Let's see if we can go live to Gerald. Gerald, can you hear me?
Jim? Can you hear me? Okay. My question, did I hear you say that you must be a delegate to the county convention in order to be elected to the state and district convention?
It's not an absolute necessity, but it would be helpful if you were a county.
Yeah, sometimes we have a situation where people are not able to make the county convention because of being either in Florida or Texas or whatever, and so sometimes we have put, we're wondering if it's okay to put their name in nomination even though they're not a delegate.
If they're not present, you certainly can put their name in the hat, and I would encourage you to do that.
Okay.
You know, if they can't be there, they can't be there. Sometimes if it's a contested race for delegates and there's maybe, say, 6 people vying for 3 positions, and the person that you're thinking about is not there, maybe it'll lessen his or her chances of being elected. But certainly if you've got a majority of pro-family delegates there, you should be able to get them elected. But certainly that provision can be made. We would encourage you to do that.
Is it normal to nominate a slate and approve a slate or vote individually?
I would encourage you only to have a slate of candidates. You're talking about for delegate now?
Yes.
I guess I would only encourage you to do that if you thought that you had the majority sitting in that room, you know?
Yeah.
If you're sitting in a room, let's say, of 20 people, and you're not clear that you got a majority, that might be risky, so it probably would be better to nominate them individually. The other thing I want to make you leery of, because I'm very familiar with this, what happened in my particular caucus a few years ago, if the moderate or liberal wing of the party is there and they know or feel that they're in the minority, what they may try to pull or to do is to propose that, let's say, 5 people get nominated for how many positions, and their people that they've nominated end up on the low end of the totem pole in terms of votes. They might propose in advance that the bottom vote getters automatically become the alternate delegates. I would encourage you not to buy into that, but where you actually propose that you have a separate election for delegates, and then when you're done with that process, you have a separate election for alternates. Does that make sense? Because if it's basically the bottom vote getters automatically become the alternate delegates, you might shortchange yourself in getting like-minded pro-family delegates elected as alternates as well as the delegate positions. I hope that's not too complicated.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gerald. And a couple of questions relating to planks. At what website are current party planks listed, and where are the proposed planks that you showed on your slides? Thank you for the wonderful presentation, that from Claude. And then Nyla asked, could you send the list of planks to our email?
Yep. Claude, what we're going to do, the actual party platform is available at iowademocrats.org and iowagop.org. You can look at both parties' planks there. We are going to be sending out an email following our webinars with a recording of this presentation for people to watch and to send on to friends. And also we will be putting platform planks examples in that email as well. So that'll include issues like the Common Core, marriage, life, and many of the other pro-family issues that we stand for in that email. And that'll be going out to both the Family Leaders database and the Iowa Faith and Freedom Coalition database. So if you're on either of those email lists, they'll be available on there. And we'll also be posting it onto the websites, which is www.thefamilyleader.com. And also for the Iowa Faith and Freedom Coalition, it's www.ffciowa.com. So ffciowa.com and thefamilyleader.com. But if you're on the email list, just wait for the email.
Very well, and we'll attempt to go live here to Alice. Alice, you're unmuted. Can you hear me? And Alice, can you hear me? One more try. If not, you can write in your question. Okay, and we'll wait for just a couple of more seconds here. We have a couple of minutes left in our webinar time. And for Daniel, who says, just a point of clarification, I think you just said we support Common Core. That is not correct, is it?
That is not correct, no. There's going to be a platform plank recommendations we're having to help remove the Common Core from both the state of Iowa and nationally.
Okay, and let's try Alice one more time. Alice, can you hear me? And again, Alice, I don't have you connected via audio. You can write in a question. From Richard, a comment. Thank you. This has been very helpful. With prayer and hard work, this could be a new beginning for Iowa and the United States. Thank you, Richard, for your comment. Last call for questions, and then we'll go ahead and conclude the webinar. Again, you can write in a question to us here or to Greg. Daniel says very helpful. Judy, its question is, please explain Common Core for those that are not familiar with it. Can you do that quickly, Greg or Steve?
I tell you what, Judy, what I'd recommend is we're going to be posting a bunch of resources on our website. It's a very complicated issue. Let's go to thefamilyleader.com. And we have a video presentation that we're going to be posting on there with our platform planks from David Barton. He's a historian from Texas that came to speak at our Celebrate the Family event. And that will be available on you. That's a 35-minute, actually I think it might be even a full hour presentation just on the core curriculum. But basically it's trying to get control away from local schools and moving into the state and federal levels by the quickest way I can sum that up. But just look to our website to get some more information on that. And I know the Family Leader has sent out a lot of communication on that. I'm sure Faith and Freedom has as well. But that's probably the best I can do without taking too much time on here.
And it's worth your time, Judy. I appreciate your patience on that, but it is a complex issue. It is worth your time to check that out. From Alice, the question is regarding planks. Can we type them up and bring them along instead of handwriting them there? What did you say about Democrats wanting to get 40,000 to strip platform of pro-marriage plank? A couple of questions from Alice. I guess the first one, should we type them up and bring them along instead of handwriting them there?
I'll go ahead and address the first one, and I'll let Steve address the second since that's what he was talking about. The first one, definitely feel free to type them up and bring them. It'll probably be actually a lot easier for you and the person that's run the caucus as well. So I would definitely encourage that, Alice. And Steve, I'll let you take the second question.
On the 40,000 people, I didn't mean to confuse anybody. There is an effort within the Republican Party by some individuals to recruit 40,000 Republicans to go to the caucuses in 2016 when we'll have our next big presidential cycle and the straw poll. To find 40,000 people go to the caucus for the specific purpose of trying to remove the pro-life plank or the pro-family, pro-marriage planks out of the state party platform. So there is a move by certain individuals to do that within the Republican Party. Of course, it's been on our platform for several years now to support traditional marriage. So that's something you need to be very leery of on the Republican side. So we're talking about 40,000 people that they were trying to recruit on the Republican side.
And I do want to emphasize real quick, in case there is any Democrats on this call, there is, once upon a time, these did not used to be partisan issues, and they have unfortunately turned partisan. But if there is any Democrats that are on the call, I would encourage you to still insert the plank in your party platform and just talk about the issue and be a light there. So we do want to make sure if there is any other political party on here that these are issues that you should submit to both sides. But the main reason why we bring up the Republican Party as much as we do is they're the only party that's talking about these issues right now.
Correct.
We have our last question coming from Gerald, and Gerald, will go live to you. Go ahead.
Question again, what is the website again for the David Barton Common Core?
Yep, it's thefamilyleader.com.
Okay.
And that we'll have that made available. That's not up there currently today that I'm aware of. I don't work on our web team, but I will work with us to make sure we get that on there when we get all the core curriculum.
One last question. Do you support the Convention of States?
The Convention of States. You know, Steve, I got that.
Support what now? The Convention of States?
Constitutional Convention?
Yes, Constitutional Convention of States, the calling of a conventional or Constitutional Convention.
That's going to be a position that has to be explained probably more time than we have, Gerald.
Right.
I'm going to have to recommend you to each other on that one, and I don't mean to put you off, but that's going to be a complicated question. It's going to take some time. And Alice, I've got your question as well. We'll make sure that gets asked to our presenters. But that's where we're going to have to cut it off. I do appreciate everyone's patience, though, and you've been wonderful to hang in there with us. And we'll again make this recording available to the presenters, and they can distribute to you. Greg, any final closing comments?
Well, Bill, I just really want to just thank you and Focus on the Family so much for providing this for us. Again, thefamilyleader.com and ffciowa.com is going to be a great resource for everyone on here. But definitely be in prayer on the caucuses and the conventions that are coming up here. Let's just make sure the Lord is really glorified.
Absolutely.
Reminded, want to make sure that you call as many like-minded people from your church and your circle of friends to attend the caucuses. Because, again, very, very few people showing up can make a huge difference as to what the county party does or what your caucus does. So encourage your friends to show up because it will make a huge impact.
Well, very well. Thanks, everyone, for your attendance and for your patience with us. We'll go ahead and conclude the webinar. Everyone in the Hawkeye State, have a great day today. And from Colorado Springs, this will conclude our webinar.